Take two. Hello, hello, rock stars, and welcome to this impromptu Bernette b08 band camp. My name is HollyAnne, Knight of String and Story, and it is my job to guide you to quilt and sew with confidence. And I am so excited to show off this machine to you tonight. Now, if you have not had the opportunity to see the Bernette b08, let me just give you a little tour over here real quick. She's a beauty. Let's see, I'm going to make me smaller, maybe. Let's see if we can successfully do this. Please be bigger. You know what? Y'all don't need to see me right now. Maybe this will do it. Here we go. That'll work. All right. Hello, Kate Brennan. It's good to see you. Welcome to the Bernette b08. Y'all, if you've been around here for a little bit, you know that a few years back, I had an industrial sewing machine for quite some time, and I loved it dearly. And I have now many sewing machines that I enjoy and that I believe in and that do all the things that I need them to do. I got a little emotional the first time I sewed on this beauty because it has that strength and power that only a straight stitch mechanical workhorse can. And she is a joy to sew on. Kate, yes, it's in my shop. Many of y'all, I hope, will get a chance to play on this because it is in our shop. Most shops will not have floor models until August. Yay. I'm glad that we're here and that we have it because I wanted to be able to create this content for y'all. That's essentially why I was able to get this machine in here early so that we can play on it and have a wonderful time together. Now, my whole goal tonight is to give y'all a tour of this b08, to answer any questions that you have, and frankly, to help you decide if this is a machine that you might want to add to your sewing room, whether that's right now while we've got all the pre-order specials going on, or maybe at some point in the future. Now, I am going to go ahead. I'm going to grab a link. Give me just a second because I should have pulled it up ahead of time, and I didn't because I was fooling around with my camera angles. I'm going to go ahead and drop a link to this machine in my shop down here. I will put it in there again as we continue on over the course of our evening together. But in case you're already like, let me go scope around some of the detailed specs of this, I'm going to try to tell you all the specs as we're chatting. Please feel free to ask questions. And I hope that all of y'all fall in love with this as much as I have. All right. Hello, Susan. I am so glad you are here. If you are here, do please say hi in the chat, engage with me, ask me questions. If there's a question that you ask that I don't know the answer to, I'm going to make some notes because that is the other point of this whole time together is I want to know what y'all need to know about this machine. Okay, so the quick overview, this is the Bernette b08 straight stitch machine. We have been waiting a long time for Bernette to have a straight stitch. Some of y'all reminded me of this when I first put the content up a couple of weeks ago, that in many ways this feels overdue. I'm relatively new to the Bernette family. I just started sewing on Bernettes about 18 months ago, and I have absolutely fallen in love, not just with the machines, but with the brand. It is a beautiful, beautiful thing when you find a brand in our industry that is being very intentional about speaking to a wider variety of sewists, of making sure that they are building a platform that is inclusive, that is really encouraging everyone from all backgrounds and genders and everyone to be a part of this. And especially as someone that I entered into the quilting world really young, I don't necessarily fit the classic demographic, and there have been times when I have been really made to feel that. I know what it's like to feel like you're on the outside looking in as a sewist. And so being able to be part of working with a brand that has this vision for really making sure that everyone is welcome, that's a huge tick box in my book, right? Those of you who have been part of this Quilting Rockstars community, you know that. We're all rock stars here, right? So I have not necessarily been waiting as long as some of the OG Bernette and Bernina fans have been waiting for this straight stitch machine. Well, let me tell you, that did not make the delivery any less sweet. So this is a fully mechanical machine. They did a lot of things on this machine to make sure that there are things that cannot break, right? They want to make sure that there's as few pieces as possible to prevent anything from going awry. The whole point of this machine is to be able to sew fast, to be able to sew reliably, to be able to sew powerfully, and to not run into issues along the way. So this even comes down to things like the feed dogs on this machine. You cannot lower the feed dogs on this machine. So instead, they have a special sole plate. So if you want a free motion quilt, the sole plate is so thick that those feed dogs can't come above it, right? So instead of actually having a mechanism where they drop, that's a mechanism that is known to be faulty, that is often something that has to get repaired if you're raising and lowering it a lot. So they just said, we're not going to do that. We're going to change the sole plate instead, right? This has a 9-inch throat space. I would wager it. Well, no, it's pretty close to my B77. So the B77 also has a 9-inch throat space. If you're comparing that, if you're familiar with the Bernina lines, I have a 590. It also has a 9-inch throat space. What sets this throat space apart is the height here. So let's see if I can get an idea of, I would say it is a solid inch taller than my Bernette, maybe even a little bit more than that. So that means you can fit a lot more through here. So whether you're putting the body of a bag through this machine, you're putting the bulk of a quilt through this machine, you're shoving a whole cosplay through here. This is a really awesome space that you're going to be able to really be able to get everything in there that you need to be able to. Okay. So 1,600 stitches per minute. That is screaming fast. For point of reference, the industrial machine that I had was 2,000, and I don't think I ever ran it at full throttle. It gets a little scary for your fingers, right? So 1,600 is all the screaming speed you could possibly want. Absolutely incredible stitch quality. And it is straight stitch only. So this machine in many ways is a one-trick pony, but it does that one trick really, really well. And that's one of the things that we're going to talk about a little bit this evening is I've got all kinds of stuff I'm going to sew through, including some leather, so y'all can see this beauty in action. Okay. Any questions so far? I am going to go over all the buttons. I'm going to go over threading. In fact, let me go ahead and snip my thread. I have been using all Aurifil 50 weight so far, which I find particularly impressive considering I've been sewing through the leather. But we'll talk about some of the adaptations that this machine has for thicker threads as well. So when you get this machine, what is in the box? Of course, you have your gorgeous b08 in the box. You also have this massive quilting table. I know that this is a weird angle. It's hard to see exactly how big it is. There's a handy dandy ruler on the front of this. From here to here is 18 inches. So this is somewhere in the neighborhood of a 22-inch quilting table. Okay, so this is a big surface area. One of my favorite features of this table, so the bobbin on this, it's a bobbin that goes in underneath, right? That again, durability, a larger bobbin. They put in this handy dandy little trap door so that if I'm working on a whole big project and my bobbin runs out, I don't have to like disassemble this whole thing. I don't have to like get my project totally out of the way and have room to pull this big table off and then be able to get under here, right? So I can lift up this door here, then there's a door under here, and this plate lifts so that I can get to my bobbin. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Impressive, right? Metal bobbin, metal case. And then it just clicks right back in there and you can close everything up. Such a thoughtful little piece of design, right? I love it so much. All right. So inside the box, you have this table, you have the machine, you also have this handy dandy little tool set. Now, a very skinny 1/4-inch foot comes on the machine. This is my favorite foot in the whole entire world, and I have missed this foot since moving out of industrial land. I am thrilled to have it back in my life. It's wonderful for a scant 1/4-inch seam. You have this lovely little toolbox that contains a seam guide that can screw on here. So if you're sewing thick materials and you want to be able to butt those materials up and really set where your seam is going to be and not have to worry about it moving, that is going to be your job for that. You, of course, have your screwdrivers, bobbins, oil, a brush as I throw a bobbin on the floor. Y'all, I say it every time. It's not alive with me if I don't throw stuff on the floor. Okay? It just absolutely is not. Cone for thread. I see oil, thread samples, thread net, spool cap, and then the ultra skinny. Let me hold it up so y'all can see it. 1/8 of an inch foot. This is your top stitching bestie. All right. So that is what comes with this machine. Now, during the pre-order promo period, you get to choose a foot set as well. So these are separate from your machine, and there are 2 different types. There is your quilt making foot set and your DIY sewing foot set. Sorry, I should hold these all the way over. I'm going to run through them real quick. We'll play with these feet a little bit as we start sewing in a few minutes, but just to give you an idea. So right now, this is $150 value for these sets. You get to pick one that comes with your machine. They will be available a la carte later as well. There's a few other feet that will be available a la carte later as we get along into this pre-order period, but we'll start by going over these. So this is going to be your quilting foot set. This is that sole plate that I already mentioned. You can see here how thick it is. Oh, let me make sure I'm holding it up where y'all can really see it. Really, really thick. So when you put this down, your feed dogs cannot reach above it. So as a free motion quilter, if you're doing ruler work, this is the way that you disable the feed dogs and create a smooth quilting surface without actually having to lower them down. So you just change that sole plate. All right. While we're on free motion quilting, we'll talk about that foot. Here is an all metal hopping foot. So this is like a darning foot style. You can unscrew right here and change this bottom piece on this hopping foot. I've never seen this before. I think it's so freaking cool because you can have 4 feet for 1. All right. So the other bottom attachments include 2 different open toe options with different orientations. So open to the side or open to the front, depending on your preference. And I'm sure some of my rock stars were already wondering, a ruler foot. So nice tall-sided ruler foot. Y'all know this is my jam. Love this foot. All right. For walking foot quilting, a walking foot is available separately. I did a little bit of walking foot quilting just with my piecing foot today, and it was chef's kiss, to be perfectly honest with you. You can adjust your presser foot pressure. So unless you really need that extra feed dog action on the top, you can do a decent amount of straight line stitching just with the foot that comes on the machine. And this guide makes it super, super easy to evenly space your lines. So you line this up, it hooks right around here, and you attach it to the screw. And then you can decide how far out. So I think it goes up to 2, maybe 2.5 inch lines. All right. And you adjust with this screw along the bar. And then this second screw here allows you to adjust how far out down the quilt that guide is so that you can run that guide and space those lines evenly. Phenomenal, right? I agree. All right, and then also in this foot is an edge stitch foot. Let me hold it so you can see. Dun, da, da, da. And a 1/4 inch foot with a guide. Y'all, if you watched the racing video that I did at Bernina University of Tony and the that audio, first of all, Easter egg that y'all should know, I made that sound for that audio. That is my voice you are hearing making race car sounds for good or for ill, because we could not find the race car sound on Instagram, and I said, I can audio record this. Put a little helium filter on it. Here we are, multi-talented. What can I say? But we tested this multiple times at Bernina University, and this guide sits down right on this plate. So when you run fabric under there, you're not going to get any slippage. Tony literally was like, look, ma, no hands, and ran down a 42-inch jelly roll piece, and that fabric did not move. She got it started, and she just let it go. Now, I don't actually recommend sewing that way. Something could go horribly wrong, right? You could get hurt, the machine could drift, etc. But what I'm saying is that if you're looking for a 1/4 inch foot with guide that is not going to let your fabric budge, this puppy is it. All right. So that is our quilting foot set. Then we have our DIY sewing set. Now, y'all, I got to be honest. I do not envy y'all who have to make a decision between these 2 sets because they're very cool. Okay. Y'all feel free to interrupt me at any point, by the way. You can chitter chatter and ask questions and all of that. I got lots of talking I'm going to do tonight. Okay. This DIY sewing set. So obviously our quilting foot set is for folks who primarily quilt, right? You are piecing, you are quilting. And then you're probably doing some quilting of your own quilts with it. This DIY set is designed for our garment and bag makers. So if you are a multi-craftual sewist and you do all of the above, I do recommend both sets, okay? And I am very glad that I have both sets. Now, I'm going to be really honest with you. I am not as familiar with the feet in this set because this is what I'm wanting to grow into. This is what I aspire to. So I think I've got the names down. And we're going to play around with a couple of them later, but I do not know them as well. Okay. So first up, we have a non-stick foot. So this is plastic. It's designed to glide across sticky fabrics a little bit easier. If that is not enough for you in the dealing with sticky fabrics department, there is also this leather roller foot. So it literally rolls along the fabric instead of gripping it with pressure. So cool. I do have leather here tonight for us to try it because I haven't tried it yet, and I am excited to do so. Okay. Rolled hem foot, binding tape, applier, applicator thing, zipper feet, invisible and regular. Let me hold these so you can see them. And then this last one, I am blanking on the name, so I'm going to check it before I pull it out of the box. Straight stitch set for fine fabric. Okay, so this actually goes with your plate. So this is the specialty plate for the garment DIY sewing set, garments and bags, right? This needle hole is significantly smaller than the one that comes on the plate on the machine. So that is if you're sewing with chiffons, other super fine fabrics, they're not going to get down into that bobbin race area. This foot pairs with them by also having a similar small opening, okay? That is smaller than the standard kind of gap in the 1/4 inch foot that comes on this, okay? It is also a little bit wider. That looks like it is, I think that's an 1/8, that's a 1/4, that's probably 3/8. So this is also gonna be a nice seam allowance foot if you're sewing garments with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, okay? Or bags, or literally anything else, right? All right, so there's the 2 feet set. So as I mentioned, these, you get to pick one during this pre-order period. Machines are set to ship in September. So you get to pick one, and then we will have the other available for separate purchase as we carry on, okay? Other things that are gonna be available for separate purchase: a walking foot, a velvet foot, and hang on, let me check my internet connection because I just got an error message. Okay, we should be fine. And this little attachment down here. So this is your lovely big old presser foot, okay? This little add-on that is bolted to the back of my presser foot, this is your thread cutter. So this is a separate add-on, this frame and pedal, and it plugs into the side of your machine separately. So instead of having a kickback, because if you're sewing at 1600 stitches per minute and you accidentally hit that kickback, it is devastating. Ask me how I know from a previous machine I owned. This solves that problem. So you still can be hands-free to cut your thread, but it's separate, so you can't hit it on accident, right? It's a lot harder anyway, okay? So inside the box, machine, the first little box of tools that I showed you, this table, your knee lift, I forgot your knee lift, and your presser foot, all right? Or your pedal. Any questions about that? Then we're gonna talk about threading, which I am still learning some of the threading mechanisms of this, but I have the concept down. So some of the stuff y'all are gonna see me do over the next 2 months is gonna be me being like, oh my gosh, I have a machine encouraging me to push myself out of my comfort zone. All right. So first things you need to know about threading. You can just barely see it on the second camera, but there are 2 thread spools back here. That's because you can wind a bobbin separately from your sewing. So we're gonna play around with some thicker threads later. So let's go ahead. We'll wind a 40 weight bobbin. I have 50 weight thread up here right now. This is 28 weight thread, or faux gray spool. This is 40 weight thread. So we'll wind a 40 weight bobbin. Actually, I'm gonna wind it out of this cream because I have more of this cream to show y'all how the bobbin winder works. I see a question. Hello, Karen. I am thrilled that you are here. It is a 9-inch throat space. And then it is an extra tall throat space, which I don't have a ruler. Hang on, I do have a ruler. So 9 inches, generous, fabulous, super useful. What really sets this apart is this throat space is a full 6 inches tall. For comparison, the B77, the throat space is 5 inches tall. So you gain a whole inch of vertical space as well, which is so cool. Great question. And it's 1600 stitches per minute, Karen. Yeah, feel free to ask. I do not mind repeating myself, okay? All right, so we have our bobbin thread over here on our second spool, and we're gonna go up and over our little tall thread guide. And I'm gonna go ahead and put my bobbin on the bobbin thing so that it is not in my hand and liable to go on the floor. Under this first hook, through this tension disc, come on. There we go. and wind around. I just wind it until it's basically a tiny little tail like that instead of having to trim it. The only thing I wish was on here that is not is I wish there was a little thread cutter, you know, like right where the screw is, but that's okay. Click that over, hit the bobbin button. So you notice this is a totally separate mechanism from the machine itself, right? It's very quiet. That's just because it's a wee little motor just to turn this little spindle so that you can wind a bobbin while you're sewing. So that means you can always have a bobbin going in the background, or if you know you're going to be getting close. And then as we already talked about, we have our handy little trap door over here. So it's easy to change a bobbin without having to disassemble this whole thing. Bobbin auto stops, right? These are hefty bobbins, and they hold a lot of thread, okay? They're good ones. I like them. All right. We're going to leave that there for now because we don't need it yet. And that's what's so great about this is we can just let that hang out and it's not going to interfere with anything. So for threading our needle, there are a couple of path options, and we're going to talk about those forks in the road as we get to them. Basically, if you are sewing with a relatively fine thread, so something like a 40-50 weight, probably even the 28 weight that we're going to sew with in a little while, you're going to sew it, you're going to thread this the way that I'm going to show you. The alternate thread path is if you get into really thick stuff, really hefty thread. So that's really going to come up if you were sewing with, I don't know, a lot of leather, if you were doing some really chunky top stitching, those kinds of things. Okay. If you have a thread that is that thick, so I'm going to gamble with something like 12 weight or heavier, right? As your general rule of thumb, you'll use the secondary thread path and you will also not use your thread cutter. Okay, you'll want to snip those threads by hand so that you don't risk that thread cutter kind of grinding and getting dull or getting stuck. Okay, but for our regular threads, we're going to start here. We will also start here for doing thicker threads. What is challenging to see at y'all's angle, hopefully you can see it better in the review video that I put up earlier today, is that this little arm has 3 holes in it. If we're doing a really thick thread, we would go through all 3 holes. For what we're going to do, we're just going to go through the outermost hole and the innermost hole. And then we floss down through this little tension disc right here. I always like to hold my threads and give a little extra tug down into the tension discs, okay? Then down through our lower tension disc. This one's more like a guide. You technically can adjust it. This is going to be your main tension adjustment down here, okay? And under, again, I hold and floss to make sure we're all the way in. And over this little wire and under this hook, okay? From here, if you had the thicker thread, you would go up through this little loop and then hook here. We can go straight up to our main thread arm, okay, of our needle drive. So through this little guide. Sorry if you can hear Havana growling. There are people outside the door. There. And then back down. Again, through that same thing, there is a little hook here that I honestly find it to be a little bit of a pain to get in. There we go. I'm 100% sure that all of these little flossing parts are going to get easier with practice. I've only threaded this machine about 3 times so far, so we're doing okay. And most of those were for the video that went up earlier today. All right, and then there is, of course, a little wire that goes just above the needle. All right. This uses a long arm needle, an organ needle. So the eye of your needle is oriented over here to the left. So it threads from the left, not from the front. All right. So when we go to use our threader, it goes down to the side. We floss around the front hook. There's little teeth that are around the needle. You want to kind of floss up under those. Oop. On the left side of the needle, not on the other side. And then gently pull through, and we're threaded. Voila! And there's a thread cutter over here on the side. For your bobbin, just to talk it through, I know I pulled it out and showed y'all earlier, but your bobbin has the thread coming off counterclockwise. line up with this little notch. Sorry, let me hold it where y'all can see it. Line up with this little notch. In the notch, and then make sure it flosses under this little bar. This is your bobbin tension right here. We're not going to get into the details of this now, but those of you who have heard me give my lecture on tension, if you were to use a TOA gauge to adjust this bobbin tension, you would use these screws here, okay? Then the whole thing flips over, so it's going to go oriented in like this, all right? And in the side we go until you hear the click. I did not hear the click. I'm like, not like that. There we go. Perfect. And then put all of your little pieces and parts back. Your plate, door number 1, door number 2. And bring that. I like to bring the bobbin thread up. You don't strictly need to. All right. Y'all ready to sew on this thing? I know that watching me thread that probably feels a little like, eh. It really is the same way that our other sewing machines thread. You can just see all the guts. So what's really cool about a machine like this, and this is true of long arms, this is true of fully industrial machines, when the design puts all your threading mechanisms on the outside of the machine, it's a lot less dust getting up inside the head of the machine. This is really useful. Now, this one does not have a lot of computer bits that are in there, but all the moving parts that are in there, they're going to stay cleaner. They're going to get less lint on them. That means they're going to last longer. Okay. So this improves the durability and the longevity of your machine to have all these tension bits on the outside. So when our thread goes through and it is going to create lint because it's cotton, any thread, regardless of brand, of weight, of anything else, if it is a natural fiber, it's going to create lint, okay? That's normal. But now all that lint is going to be on the outside of your machine. It's not going to end up on the inside, gunking up all your bits, all right? Does the needle thread from the side? Yes, it threads from the side over here on the left. Yep, absolutely. Great question. And what I love about this needle threader as well is this is also fully mechanical. Everything on this is very, very mechanical. So that like this is not gonna goober, and it doesn't have anything to do with your foot going up and down. So there's not computerized parts in there that can glitch. Yeah, I love it. Press your foot up and down is on the back, like so. Once it's down, we do have a mechanical knee lift that we can use to raise it for things like pivots and whatnot. If you're sewing something really thick and you need more clearance, you can actually push up against that spring. You can get a lot of clearance. I don't actually recommend putting your finger under there like I just did. I was proving a point about how big the space was. That's a dangerous place to put your finger. Don't do that. But you can get it way up there, okay? You can get, it's like a full centimeter of clearance, maybe even a little bit more, okay? Let us sew. We're going to start with speed. So lower my presser foot. This is our needle up down. If the green side, the up arrow is highlighted, then when you stop sewing, your arrow or your needle will end in the up position. If you click it, put the needle down, and now the red down arrow is highlighted, your needle will end in the down position when we sew. So we'll start with it up. So it ends up. All right. Put it down. So it ends down. This is the slowest speed of the machine, and I'm going pedal to the floor. All right. So pedal to the floor on this machine is still going to have a little kick. Now we'll go to the fastest speed on this machine. This is 1,600 stitches per minute. And it creates absolutely beautiful stitches, front and back. Dun, 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 dun. All right. Now, any questions on that? Y'all saw some of the way that this holds true, even without that guide, right? It does a really great job. The amount of fatigue reduction sewing on a machine like this, right? If you are chain piecing, if you are sewing any kind of long straight seam, if you are handling really thick materials, bags, garments, quilt binding, right? The reduction of effort on your body of not having to wrestle something through because this machine is strong enough to pull it right through and to do so quickly and smoothly. Phenomenal. Phenomenal. It saves so much energy. So if you are someone that you struggle with fatigue when you're sewing, seriously consider this because this is really designed to be the most efficient way to sew, right? Think about the fact that machines that are more like this than like our home sewing machines are the kinds of things that are used in mass production, right? Where you got to be able to sit there and sew. The machine has to be able to stand up to it, but also it has to reduce the load on your body enough for that to happen, right? Jelly rolls, right? Jelly roll race. Quill Tony at Bernina University put together a jelly roll race quilt top in 36 minutes and 57 seconds. Say what now? Incredible, right? Now, I'm not saying that you need to do everything the fastest, that you possibly can every moment of every time you're sewing, but being able to like here, right? The minimal effort that it's requiring for me to guide that fabric through is pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. All right. Let's talk about power. This is 16 layers of canvas. Let's do an experiment, shall we? Now, I will say this fabric that we used at Bernina University was even thicker. This is a 21-ounce duck cloth, I think it is. So this is like sailing fabric. This is like you're gonna make a sail, right? This is 8 layers of that. Went through it like butter, or 16 layers of a more standard canvas. How many oil ports? That's a great question, Kate, and I have not looked at the oil diagram yet, so let's look at it together. Changing the needle, lubricating the machine. I don't know why that was so funny, but it was. All right. There are 2 places to put oil into the machine, plus how you're going to oil your bobbin race. All right. So this is page 16 of your handy dandy quick start guide. I love the troubleshooting too. They did a really good job on this quick start guide, y'all. Because I don't know about y'all, I am not a manual reader. I'm not. I will look up stuff as I need it, but having all my key skills and a really cute little booklet that I can keep handy, phenomenal. So you're going to put oil here and here. There are 2 little holes at the top of the machine, right? And then you'll also put oil down in your hook area. So where your bobbin goes in, and then there's the actual drive machine, like motor drive piece down under there as well. So here's where your bobbin goes in. If you've oiled a long arm, it's a lot like that. And then there's 1 more place down underneath, okay? So you'll put just a drop. 3 drops up here. 1, 2, 3. 1 drop in each of these 2 spots, okay? They don't put a frequency in here. I would say every couple of bobbins, minimum, right? Listen to if your machine is not sounding as purry, like if that purr is getting loud, then it needs oil. If it's starting to sound clunky, it needs oil. So I would say you could probably do every 2 bobbins. If it's sounding gross, do it every bobbin. Okay? Good plan. That's about what I follow with my long arm for what that's worth. All right. Let's sew some canvas. Great question, Karen. Thank you for asking that. All right, make use of my knee lift. And we're going to sew straight down. I have my stitch length on 2.5, by the way. My tension is at 3. Of course, I went through that beautifully. This is now 4 layers of canvas. Stunning. I know that this thread color is probably not the very best, but I hope y'all can see how crispy these stitches are. That's something that I just find really, really delightful about this machine. This is 8. Like so. And you're ready for 16? Honestly, my ability to fold fabric became the limiting factor on this. You can hear that little change, right? It's punching a little harder to get through there. Still no problem at all. And the back. Stitches are just as crispy at 16 layers as they were at 2. Stunning. Stunning. I believe it's 42 pounds, Karen. Let me see if I can check on the box. Let's see. Ship weight was 43 pounds. So yeah, right about 42 pounds. It would be hefty to travel with, but it's very sturdy. I think something that I really love about this machine too, the B77 goes 1,000 stitches per minute. Y'all know I love my B77. But it will shake this table, right? This is just a little Gidget table from Arrow. It's designed to be a machine table for a small space, maybe for a backup machine, maybe for travel, right? It's not the sturdiest of tables to be like, it's good. I've been using them for a long time. They're super handy. But my B77 will shake it, right? The all metal design of this combined with its weight keeps it very stable. So as you just saw, even going full speed through 16 layers of canvas, I have no shake whatsoever. So it would be a little hefty to travel with, but it's also going to be a very sturdy machine to travel with, right? Not a lot can go wrong. Get one of those little Tudo trolleys to put it in, and you're good to go. All right. So yeah, look at that. Just it's so pretty. It did such a good job. Just imagine top stitching a bag with that. All right. Speaking of top stitching, let's go through some leather. So this is 1/8 inch leather. It is not supple, right? Like it's pretty stiff leather. This is leather that I got, oh gosh, probably almost 10 years ago. When I had an Etsy shop, I was making some coasters. I don't know. I was being creative, but I was excited to bust it out today. So same thing. This is Orville 50 weight thread. Sews right through that. Absolutely like butter. Yep. Does it have a full metal hook? Yes. Yes, it does, Karen. I'm going to thread this with some thicker thread so we can see what a nice top stitch looks like. Keep those questions coming. I love it, Karen. All right. So I'm going to pull out, this is that 50 weight bobbin. I'm going to use the 40 weight bobbin that we wound earlier. We'll find out together if I need to tweak the tension at all for this as I switch to a heavier thread. I went ahead and tested the the leather before we got on together, but I haven't actually tested the thicker thread yet. I wanted to save some experiments to do with y'all. Great question, Karen. I don't actually know the answer to that one. Let me check something real quick and see if I can get you an answer. Because I believe it is not an M, because my handy quilter, I believe, is an M, and these are smaller than that. I don't have an L size bobbin handy, so I don't actually know the answer to that, Karen. They might be specific to this machine. Bernina tends to do things like that, even though it looks pretty standard. If I find out the answer, I will let you know. But I've not heard that yet. 50 weight away. Let's grab our 28. I love this golden color. It's going to look really pretty on this black leather. I'm going to thread this the same way for right now, unless we run into any issues that suggest I need to take the alternate thread path. I don't think it's thick enough to need to take the alternate thread path. It's thick, but it's not that thick. You know what I mean? Oop, under the wire, under the hook. Oh, my foot's down. No wonder this is giving me such a hard time. Always raise your foot before you thread your machine, people. Don't do what I just did. I've gotten spoiled by my very intelligent B77 that always puts it up for me. All right. Floss under here. Oh, I got on the first try that time. Look at that. See, I'm learning already. So will you. I love that this needle threader will stay in place without me holding it, so I can put it down and then fiddle with my thread. That's pretty tight, so we may end up needing to loosen that tension a little bit. We're going to test it and find out. All right, 28 weight, test number 1. Well, it sure sounded good. Yep, so I can see these stitches are not quite as crispy here. It's pulling my bobbin thread up. The bobbin thread looks real crispy. So I'm going to loosen that top tension just slightly so I get a nice crisp stitch on the top. Okay. That was quite a few clicks. Let's give that a go. Better. So y'all can already see it's getting crisper. Let's loosen it up a little more. Getting there. Let me actually properly raise my foot to adjust this. Best practices. Do as I say, not as I do, y'all. I'm too excited. I'm not following my own best practices. I know I don't need to trim these threads. They're just bugging me. All right. We're going to loosen it up still just a baby bit more. No. Oh, I messed with my knee. There we go. Let's try that. There we go. Oh, that's so pretty. So here's our final result. Look at that beautiful crisp stitch front and back. So going up in thread, weight, loosen your tension a little bit as you're stitching on thick things like leather. But boy, did it do a pretty good job. Now, for kicks and giggles, let's put that leather roller foot on so y'all can see how that works. All right, so this attaches like so. Take off our main foot. Keep those questions coming out. That reverse spring is also really handy for getting your feet on and off. Came in. Notice I don't have to take that screw all the way out, even with this pretty thick setting, which is really nice. There's nothing more annoying than having to take that screw all the way out because getting it started again is a pain. Now I am going to consult my guide before we sew with this. I want to make sure I don't also need to have another foot on here because I know the quilting guide, you put it on with the foot. Nope, this is as the foot. Brilliant. Let's do it. So when I lower this down, my fingers are scared. Let's put my needle down. Oh, there we go. Move everything out of the way. That is simply going to roll along the side there. I don't have as good of a point of reference of where I am when I'm working with that, but if you were top stitching the edge of something, that would serve as your visual guide. But this is for things that are too sticky, right? To be feeding under, or they're too thick. You need a little bit of extra space. And it's going to help tamper that down, hold it in place. If you're putting layers of leather together to make something like a belt, this is going to help hold it and roll it through smoothly without those pieces sliding on each other and becoming disconnected because of the pressure of the foot, right? Cool feature. Love it. Now I am going to do another kind of wild thing because we can. I'm going to grab another piece of leather and I'm going to put the free motion quilting foot on here. And I'm going to assume I need to loosen my tension a little bit more to do it, but I want to see if we can free motion quilt leather. Can the feed dogs be lowered for free motion? Great question, Karen. So inside the quilting set, which I'm going to open up in a moment, is a thicker sole plate to put down to basically cover the feed dogs rather than lowering them. So the mechanism that raises and lowers feed dogs can, of course, break. So in the effort to eliminate a part that can go awry, rather than being able to lower your feed dogs on this machine, you change out your sole plate. So great question on that front. This is that thicker sole plate. I'm going to take this one out. This is my first time taking this out, so let's hope these screws come easily. Oh, that feels like a miracle. I tried to change the sole plate when I was at Bernini University, and of course it hadn't been taken off before. And so the first time you loosen these screws is sometimes a bit of a doozy. And I couldn't get that second screw loose. So I am pleased that this one loosened right up for me. All right, so here is our regular sole plate, and here is that thick one for comparison. So you can kind of get an idea of how that works. So when I put this down, smooth side up, my feed dogs are now below the lip of that plate. So they are not going to interfere with my quilting at all. And this has a nice little beveled edge on it. So as this is screwed in place, I will still have a nice smooth surface for quilting. If you ever really want to feel self-conscious, screw things in on a sewing machine on camera. Does the machine come with the plate and the free motion foot, or is that a separate purchase? So during this pre-order period, Karen, so over the next month or so, you get to choose one foot set. And I went over these at the beginning of the video. I'll give you a brief summary now. So there is a quilt making foot set that includes free motion quilting feet, this thicker sole plate, a straight stitch guide, an edge stitch foot, and a 1/4 inch foot with guide. Or there is the DIY sewing foot set. So that's one we had open a minute ago that has that leather roller foot, rolled hem foot, 2 zipper feet, a non-stick foot, a fine fabrics plate and foot, binding attachment. Is that everything? I think that's everything. Yeah. So you either can choose this DIY sewing set or the quilting set at purchase right now. It's $150 value. It is included during this promo period, which is phenomenal. So that you can get started with everything you need. All right, so there's our plate. Ooh, there we go. And then let's put our free motion quilting foot on. So this free motion quilting foot comes with this kind of darning foot attachment. I'm going to unscrew that and I'm going to put a ruler foot on here. I want a little more heft if I'm going to put leather underneath this baby. This time I really do have to take the screw all the way out, but that piece just pops right off like so. And it has a lovely kind of slightly more than half circle shape, so you know how to put it on to have it oriented correctly. And you put that screw. Ooh, don't drop that on the floor. It'll go skittering forever. Oh, maybe I had it put on a little aggressively. There we go. Tighten that up slightly. We don't want it being loose. And then put this on the machine. So a 2-step process to lower those feed dogs. These are strong feed dogs. If y'all have watched the reel from BU where I was free motion quilting on this machine, that's when I couldn't get that screw out to change the sole plate. So I was fighting the feed dogs to free motion quilt. Was not my favorite experience. All right. I forgot to grab a practice sandwich, so we're gonna try it on leather, because why not? Got leather scraps that have been sitting around for a couple of years. Might as well see if we can do something cool on them. Boom. All right. Like I said, I suspect I'm gonna need to loosen my tension a little bit more. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And I'm gonna go grab my free motion quilting gloves. Perfect. I'm caught up on questions. If you have further questions, ask them while I run and grab my gloves. And then we're gonna do this. These are Swan Amity quilting gloves. They're my favorites. I think these are smalls. I usually wear mediums, but that's all right. They're what was back in the cupboard. Ooh, this is going to be fun to grab this little bitty red tail. We're going to try again, and then I'm going to grab my tweezers. Tweezers. This is the downside of having the shop as a sewing room. I got stuff all over the place. I don't know. I guess probably any of us we have our stuff scattered all over our sewing room. I just never seem to quite manage to have all of mine exactly where I want it when I start. All right. We'll see if this works. I don't know if this will work. I think the machine is capable of it. I don't know if I have all the settings correct, but we're going to find out together. I'm thinking about what I want to do. Hang on. Okay. All right. Stitch length. I don't know if it'll really matter if it's at 0 because I've got my dogs covered, but I'm also going to decrease this pressure so that this can move more freely. I wonder if I can see underneath to see what my tension looks like. Actually looks fine. I'm going to loosen it just a little more. So this is interesting because this is leather. I'm trying to make my stitches longer than I maybe would if I was doing this on cotton. We can throttle our machine to help with that too. This is, of course, quite a sticky substrate to be dragging around. There is not a stitch regulator on this machine, as you can imagine. So we're going to see quite a bit of irregularity from how I'm moving this. So we're going to go with it. Oh, and there went the thread. So looser tension still. Even so, let's take a peek at this together. Definitely some funkiness on the back. Definitely some tension things that we could play with. But y'all, look at that. Free motion quilted through leather. Little funky on the back. That's all right. How cool. I have many ideas now. How many lights are on the machine? Great question. I think it's just this little LED. There's 4 little LEDs right underneath here. It's an okay light. The lighting was pretty crummy in the convention center at BU in the room where they were demoing these. But I felt like it wasn't good for photography, but I felt like I could still see really well at the machine. So it is bright, it's clear, it's a nice white light. And because it's LED, it's going to last very nicely. Great question. If you're wondering about general lighting for your sewing room, though, I always have a daylight slimline at my workstation or similar. So that, of course, you can see how much light that brings down underneath here. I encourage everyone to have a slimline at their machine. I don't care how many lights your machine has. Because eye strain as a sewist is real. And it's very easy to strain our eyes with inadequate lighting. Yeah, great question. What other questions can I answer for y'all? We have been here for an hour. I am so excited that y'all were willing to hang out with me, that we got to take such a beautiful look at this b08. I hope it is thoroughly apparent from my energy how excited I am about this machine, how excited I am to play around with it and experiment, and the possibilities that this opens up, right? If you do quilting, if you do bags, if you do garments, if you do cosplay, if you do other kinds of sewing that I maybe have not even represented this evening, right? This is a powerful tool to have on your journey with you. They've done a beautiful job designing this machine. I love all the thought that went into not just the machine itself. Where did my screwdriver go? Where is my super suit? Here we go. Not only the machine itself, but these foot sets as well. I was really struck looking at these feet as I was, trying out the machine for the first time, and the care that went into making sure that that single extra purchase could really cover what you would want based on your discipline. I think that's just really incredible. That makes me feel set up for success as a maker. And I hope it makes you feel set up for success as a maker. Kate, can you imagine the bag implications on this, right? Like, phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I have picked out a bag that I'm going to make. Jim needs a new bag to carry his Omnipod controller. So my older son is type 1 diabetic, as is my husband. As you can imagine, my son is much more recently diagnosed than John is. And we recently started on the Omnipod pump. And so he needs a bag to be able to carry his basically it's a phone, but it's used to control his insulin pump. And so I'm going to make him a little crossbody. I'm going to pull this out so I don't have thread hanging out as I am changing my plate. And I can't wait to do it on this machine. I know. Yeah, Kate, bring all the bag patterns. I love it. Yeah, you're going to help me figure out this bag next week, Kate, just so you know. Kate is coming to visit. We are going to sew. All right, rock stars, I am going to wrap up our time together as I get this put back. Let me drop this link one more time for y'all in the chat. It is also in the caption of this video. If you are excited about this machine, if you are excited for what you can do with it, it is time to place your pre-order. We are taking pre-orders for about the next month. And it's during that time that you get to pick that foot set to get with your machine so that you can really get going right away. Whoops, dropping bobbins. There it goes. I'm like, where'd it go? You can get going right away doing all the amazing things. So Rockstars, pre-orders are open. Get those orders in so we can order yours in our first round, our first shipment that will be coming in September, and then get this machine headed your way. I'm really excited to show this off to you a lot more in the meanwhile. And as you start to get yours to be sewing with you and helping you feel even more set up for success. Thank you so much for your time this evening. I really enjoyed being able to show off this bernette b08 to all of y'all. And if you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to me. You can reach me at hello@stringandstory.com. You can reach me at stringandstory on Instagram. You can comment here. And I would just love to help you experience the joy of this machine. Karen says, thank you for answering all my questions. I have more research to do. I appreciate the time. Of course, Karen. And like I said, please reach out. This is a beauty. This is going to be a really good machine, one that you can have and sew on for a really long time. Awesome. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Again, I'm HollyAnne Knight of String and Story, and I'm here to guide you to quilt and sew with confidence. Have a great evening, rock stars. Thanks for spending this time with me.